Now what the hell do you think you're doing with that tin star, boy?
Watch that boy shit, redneck. You talking to the sheriff of Rock Ridge.
The hidden spark everyone missed. Blazing Saddles has been picked apart for decades, yet one tiny spark stays hidden in plain sight. It is not a lost reel, a cameo, or a backstage feud. Gene Wilder finally pointed out, and once you notice it, the whole movie tilts on its head. What if the wildest comedy of the 1970s only clicked because the quietest man in the room kept the chaos balanced? A slot the studio never planned. Mel Brooks set out with Gig Young as the Waco Kid, thinking an Oscar winner would anchor the aging gunfighter role. On day one, that anchor snapped. Young sweated, shook, and garbled his lines until he collapsed before lunch. The crew first thought it was method, but it was brutal alcohol withdrawal that forced the shoot to stop. Brooks dials his secret weapon. With cameras idle and money burning, Brooks skipped casting calls and rang a friend he trusted with his life, Gene Wilder. Wilder did not ask for pay, pages, or perks. He just said yes and boarded the next flight. By the following morning, jet-lagged but steady, he walked on the set and slipped into a part he had never rehearsed. Instant command amid chaos. Most actors study for weeks, yet Wilder had mere hours, and still he moved like he had worn those dusty boots forever. His calm focus stabilized the production on the verge of collapse. Would the Waco Kid have carried the same dry sadness if Young had stayed? We will never know. Wilder's take became legend overnight. No turning back once the dust settled. What began as an emergency recast turned into one of comedy's crown jewels. The Waco Kid was no longer a backup. It became the new gold standard of subtle humor. And it all spun out of one frantic phone call during an on-set disaster. The choice to play it straight. Before Wilder touched the script, he set one rule: he would not chase laughs. In a movie bursting with slapstick and wall-breaking gags, he played the kid like a ghost of the Old West, tired, patient, and wounded. That stillness let every other joke explode louder. The backbone nobody expected. Mel Brooks later said Wilder's restraint gave the whole film its spine. While Hedley Lamarr and Mongo sprinted toward pure absurdity, the Waco Kid leaned on the jailhouse wall, hands trembling, voice worn out, turning a gag into a human bruise that made audiences laugh and wince at once. A mirror of Wilder's own temperament. Friends called Wilder thoughtful and exact, never loud, always precise. That mindset soaked into the kid, proving you can whisper in a hurricane and still be heard. In a sea of punchlines, his silence made every punchline hit harder. Comedy's golden rule: contrast. Playing it quiet was risky. Another actor might have faded, but Wilder knew contrast supercharges absurdity. By refusing to clown around, he made everyone else's madness brighter. His calm became the eye of a storm that still spins audiences dizzy today. The dream duo that almost exploded. Long before release, Richard Pryor was set to write and star as Sheriff Bart. Brooks fought for him, seeing Pryor's fearless voice as essential to the film's bite. Studio chiefs panicked over Pryor's public scandals and barred his casting, reshaping comedy history in one nervous meeting. Wilder's What If? Wilder later mused about the version where Pryor stood beside him. Their later hits, Silver Streak and Stir Crazy, proved their chemistry was lightning. Would the kid's quiet grief feel different next to Pryor's volcanic wit? The question still teases fans. Pryor's voice without his face. Even off-screen, Pryor stamped his mark on every sharp line and racial jab in the script. Cleveland little shone as Bart, yet many of the film's nervy edges came straight from Pryor's pen. It is rare for someone to steer a movie so boldly, without ever appearing on camera, but Pryor pulled it off. A landmark forever, with one giant what if. Blazing Saddles still towers over comedy, but imaginations run wild picturing Wilder and Pryor sharing dusty streets and dynamite dialogue in 1974. Maybe losing that chance made their later team-ups even sweeter. The thought stays one of Hollywood's biggest what-ifs. Calm in a storm of meltdowns. Behind the laughter, the set boiled with pressure, studio notes, long nights, and unpredictable cast energy. Brooks drove forward with manic gusto, yet Wilder's soft presence became the glue that kept nerves from snapping. Crew members say he rarely raised his voice, but everyone breathed easier when he walked by. Quiet tips that lit up the set. Between takes Gene Wilder never bragged or lectured, yet he slipped golden tips to every nervous newbie. He would lean in, whisper a tweak, nudge a pause, or soften a tone, and suddenly their lines clicked into rhythm. Years on stage taught him that small changes fire big laughs, and the crew soon noticed his gentle fingerprints on scene after scene. The unofficial guardian of tone. No spotlight chase him, but several crew members later called Wilder the silent referee, who kept satire and sincerity from wobbling out of balance. He watched from the edge, nodded when a joke needed space, and smiled when a tender beat felt right. His presence steadied the mood like a hidden metronome that nobody heard, yet everybody followed. A wild idea born during coffee breaks. While cameras cooled, Wilder tossed Mel Brooks a fresh spark that had nothing to do with the blazing West on screen. He wondered aloud what would happen if a modern doctor named Frankenstein refused to follow his family legend. That tiny question flowed across folding chairs, grew into Young Frankenstein, and changed horror comedy forever. Fast, gear-shifting brilliance. 1 minute Wilder wrestled absurd punchlines. The next he mapped an entirely new story in his head. Few actors could juggle chaos in the present while sketching future classics in the margins. His creative trust with Brooks proved that big laughs come easier when two minds share the same fearless playground. Calm eyes inside a whirlwind. Audiences cheer Wilder's on-screen stillness, yet his backstage calm may have saved the entire shoot. When deadlines squeezed and temper spiked, he breathed slow, offered quiet support, and reminded peers why they loved the craft. In a movie powered by wild disorder, he stood like the eye of a storm that keeps every cloud in check, the hurt hiding behind the smile. On screen, his Waco Kid fires deadpan zingers, yet Wilder laced every line with hidden pain. This gunslinger drinks not for laughs, but to drown haunted memories, and Wilder played that sorrow as real as a broken bone. His trembling hands and distant stare hinted trauma that comedy alone cannot erase. Real sadness inside the satire. While other actors chased cartoon chaos, Wilder chose bruised realism that made each gag cut deeper. Viewers who rewatched the film often gasp when they notice the regret in his voice, as he recalls once being the fastest draw. The scene lands like a confession instead of a boast, and it changes how the whole character is remembered. Power in the pause. Comedy often rewards speed, yet Wilder proved that silence can shout. A single breath, a slight shrug, or a half smile from him said more than a page of dialogue. Mel Brooks later admitted that Wilder's emotional wisdom gave the story its soul. The funniest punch sometimes hides in the quiet just before the laugh. Questions that linger after the credits. His Waco Kid sparks laughs, yet also invites wonder. Why did he quit believing in anything? What loss drove him into the bottle? The script never answers outright, but Wilder's weary gaze plants those mysteries deep in the audience mind. That lingering ache makes the comedy feel richer every time you revisit it. Holding a straight face was mission impossible. Behind the camera, Wilder's subtle jab sent cast and crew into helpless giggles. Take after take collapsed because someone burst out laughing at the wrong moment. Even Mel Brooks had to step off set more than once, so his own roar would not ruin the audio. Quiet lines that hit like thunder. Cameramen trembled when Wilder dropped offbeat gems. His delivery of, "You've got to remember, these are just simple farmers. Morons," destroyed more takes than almost any other scene. Cleveland Little struggled to stay in character, while everyone else fought tears of laughter. Hidden scenes lost the time. Stories whisper about longer dramatic beats that dove deeper into the kid's bruised past. Word on set says some of Wilder's best serious moments were trimmed to keep the pace racing, with those softer breaths have slowed the ride or added even sharper edges to his sorrow. Fans still debate what treasures might rest on the cutting room floor. Genius that worked on two levels at once. These backstage tales show Wilder's magic running in two streams. Loud laughter filled the room, yet underneath, a quiet river of emotion kept flowing. Even the jokes nobody heard because the boom operator was laughing too hard reveal how layered his craft truly was, defying Hollywood's usual tricks. During an era when comics mugged for cameras and punched every line, Wilder dared to pull back. In the jail cell debut, he slouches, half awake, voice barely above a whisper, and somehow the scene steals a whole movie. He broke the rules by not breaking a sweat, and the gamble paid off big. Whisper beats, shouting every time. Studio comedies once worshipped broad faces and loud gestures, yet Wilder proved that understatement can feel revolutionary. While everyone else swung for fences, he tapped the ball with perfect timing and still cleared the wall. That choice looked quiet, but it was bold and risky. A new road for screen comedy. By abandoning flashy tricks, Wilder opened doors for later actors who wanted to chase laughs through honesty instead of noise. His calm defiance told Hollywood that silence paired with heart can generate bigger explosions than any pratfall. Laughter anchored by heartbreak. Gene Wilder showed that the sweetest giggles sometimes grow from the saddest truths. His Waco Kid hurts, drinks, laughs, guides, and dreams all inside one battered soul. That mix turned a simple parody into a timeless masterclass in human comedy. Wilder's silent power changed comedy forever. Back in the 1970s, comedy loved loud, wild, over-the-top energy. But Gene Wilder proved something amazing. Sometimes quiet steals a whole show. When he dropped lines like, "Are we awake?" with dry, steady calm, the laughs landed because he felt real, not because he forced a joke. A quiet rule breaker. Wilder's cool, soft style made the Waco Kid feel like someone who had seen way too much. He didn't aim to dominate scenes or outshine anyone. He listened. He reacted. He made space for others to shine. That balance let the wild part sparkle without drowning the quiet heart underneath. His biggest strength? Trust. Wilder didn't fight for more laughs. He trusted the story, the timing, and the audience's smarts. That rare confidence made the comedy sharper, not louder. His quiet delivery wasn't a weakness. It was a glue holding the whole circus together, redefining what funny looks like. By playing it soft in a loud film, Wilder didn't just surprise the audience. He changed what comedy could be. His calm style became the secret weapon that made Blazing Saddles stick in people's minds forever. Wilder's big idea was born between scenes. One of Gene Wilder's greatest creations, Young Frankenstein, actually began during the filming of Blazing Saddles. It wasn't some big pitch. It started as a quick chat between takes. Wilder simply wondered, what if Frankenstein's grandson didn't want a family curse? At first, Brooks said no. Mel Brooks didn't love the idea right away. He was deep in the chaos of Blazing Saddles. But Wilder didn't give up. He quietly wrote a draft on his own, believing it could work. When Brooks finally read it, everything changed. A tiny seed became a giant hit. That little conversation during coffee breaks grew into one of the most famous horror comedies of all time. Without the crazy set of Blazing Saddles, Wilder might never have sparked this idea at all. His creative leap that day became a huge turning point in his career. From actor to creator, Wilder had already proven he could act, but Young Frankenstein showed he could lead behind the camera too. He helped shape the story's heart, speed, and spirit. His mix of balance, restraint, and emotion stayed with him, just like in Blazing Saddles. The set that sparked everything. Without the playful, trusting vibe on the Western spoof, Young Frankenstein might never have happened. Wilder's shift from performer to creator came from quiet hard work, not big speeches. In the end, Blazing Saddles wasn't just a hit. It was a launch pad for something even bigger. Wilder's quiet battle against the studio. Gene Wilder wasn't just key on screen. He also backed Mel Brooks during the movie's biggest fights with the studio. Right from the start, the studio bosses were nervous. They didn't like the bold jokes about race or the sharp jabs at American culture. They wanted softer words, safer scenes, and fewer risky moments. Wilder refused to back down. Even though he wasn't the director or producer, Wilder stood firm. He believed Blazing Saddles had to stay sharp, even if it made people squirm. When Brooks faced pressure to cut powerful scenes or soften hard truths, Wilder told him to hold the line. He knew the film's power came from its honesty. Quiet support, strong impact. Wilder didn't protest loudly. He stood steady in private talks and production meetings. His quiet strength made a huge difference. He knew if they watered down the story, the film would lose its purpose. Without the edge, there would be no bite, pushing for truth over comfort. Wilder didn't hate the studio, but he didn't trust bosses who chased easy comfort over creative truth. He later said that real satire should never feel safe. It should make people look at themselves, even when it stings. The statement behind the laughs. Blazing Saddles wasn't just a comedy to Wilder. It was a challenge to the way things were. He didn't want to protect audiences from being uncomfortable. He wanted to hold up a mirror. And if the reflection hurt, that was the point. Wilder's backbone helped the film survive. Brooks had the vision, but Wilder's support gave it extra power. He wasn't just another actor. He was a trusted creative partner. Without Wilder's quiet fight, the film's sharpest edges might not have survived. Breaking the rules on and off screen. Wilder didn't need to shout to make his point, just like his calm performance. His steady defense off-screen helped Blazing Saddles keep its fearless spirit. He helped save one of the boldest comedies ever made. The quiet role that changed everything. Gene Wilder's Waco Kid did more than make people laugh. He gave the film its steady heart. In a movie packed with wild jokes and crazy moments, his calm grounded the whole story. Without him, the movie could have spun into chaos and lost its way. More than just comic relief. The Waco Kid wasn't there just to crack jokes. He was the audience's guide through the madness. He didn't add to the craziness. He reflected on it. That quiet focus turned Blazing Saddles into something more than just a funny movie. It gave it lasting power. Quiet comedy was rare. Back then, most funny roles were loud and in your face. Wilder's calm, thoughtful style was the opposite. His quiet scenes gave the wild satire room to hit even harder. His tired eyes and dry delivery made the jokes sparkle brighter by contrast. His work aged better than loud laughs. At first, audiences remembered the loudest jokes. But over time, Wilder's subtle magic became the part people loved most. His work is now a perfect example of how quiet moments can outshine big noise. Why the film is now a treasure. Blazing Saddles wasn't just popular. It became a piece of American history. The Library of Congress saved it because it mattered. Culturally, historically, and artistically, Wilder's calm helped the movie earn that honor. The comedy style Wilder cemented. What did Wilder leave behind? A new kind of comedy that makes space for smarts, sadness, and silence. He proved you don't have to shout to make history. His calm revolution still teaches us that sometimes the biggest laughs come from the quietest places. A radical voice that still echoes. Even after all these years, the Waco Kid's quiet wisdom keeps ringing in the hearts of movie fans. Wilder's style shaped not just Blazing Saddles. It reshaped what comedy could be.